October 10, 1943, 25,000 feet above northern Germany. Second Lieutenant Jack Callahan feels the cold before he feels the fear. The oxygen mask freezes against his lips as the intercom crackles with static. Outside the plexiglass nose of the B-17F flying fortress, the world is white sunlit cloud tops below, contrails above, and ahead, black puffs blooming in the sky. Flak. Jack adjusts his A to leather jacket and leans over the Norden bomb site. Below the haze lies Bremen U-boat pens, shipyards, steel, a hard target, a necessary one. Steady, steady, he mutters. The bomber shudders as a burst detonates close off the port wing. Shards of steel scream through the airframe. Somewhere behind him, a man curses. This is his 12th mission. 5 more and he goes home. If he survives, the interphone clicks alive. Bandits, 11 o'clock high. Staff Sergeant Miller's voice from the top turret is sharp, tight. Jack lifts his eyes. Tiny black crosses grow larger against the pale sky. Messerschmitt Bf-109 fighters diving out of the sun. The formation tightens. Dozens of Boeing B-17 flying fortress bombers hold their boxes, silver wings glinting. No escorts. The P-47 Thunderbolt can't reach this far into Germany yet. They are alone. The first fighter streaks past, cannons flashing. The fortress to their right erupts in flame, its wing folding like paper. No parachutes. Jack forces his breathing slow. He must stay steady for the bomb run. Bombardier to pilot. I have control. Up in the cockpit, Captain Ellis releases the yoke. The bomber now flies on the bombsite's gyros. A straight line. No evasive action. They are a locked target. Another explosion rocks the nose. The plexiglass crazes with cracks. A shard slices Jack's cheek. Warm blood trickles under the oxygen mask. He does not wipe it away. Below, Bremen grows clearer through drifting smoke. The anti-aircraft batteries find their range. Black bursts surround them like a closing fist. Behind him, the right waist gun chatters. A fighter passes so close Jack sees the pilot's goggles young. Focused, human, bomb bay doors open, calls the co-pilot. The aircraft lurches slightly as cold air floods upward. Altitude steady, airspeed steady. But then, a deafening blast. The fortress jerks violently left. The nose drops. Jack is thrown against the bomb site. Number 3 engines gone. The flight engineer shouts. Hydraulics leaking. Warning lights blink red across the panel. The formation begins to pull ahead. They are falling behind. And over Germany, falling behind means dying alone. Jack grips the bomb site tighter as the city fills his lenses. If he pulls out now, the target survives. If he holds steady, they might not. Outside, another wave of fighters circles back for the kill. And the crippled B-17 cannot turn. The nose keeps dropping. Jack slams his shoulder back into the Norden bomb site frame and steadies it with both hands. The gyros whine, trying to hold their line. Through cracked plexiglass, Bremen fills the crosshairs. Hold her steady, he shouts. I'm trying. Captain Ellis growls from the cockpit. The fortress shudders as wind tears through the shattered nose cone. Number 3 engine burns. A ribbon of black smoke trailing behind them like a signal flare. They are no longer in formation. And the sky knows it. Another pass cannon shells rake the fuselage. The aluminum skin rattles like tin. Sergeant Miller's twin .50 seconds hammer from the top turret. Brass casings clanging across the fuselage. I got one smoking. Miller yells. No one cheers. Jack's world narrows to numbers. Airspeed 150. Drifting. Altitude 24,300 and falling. Crosswind stronger than briefed. The bomb site trembles from vibration. Below, the gray rectangles of the U-boat pens wait untouched. He thinks of home Ohio farmland, a red barn. His mother standing on the porch when he left. He crushed the thought. 30 seconds, he calls. Another blast closer. The left wing lifts violently. The aircraft yaws. The bomb site's crosshairs slide off target. If he releases now, the bombs scatter harmlessly. If he waits too long, Flak will tear them apart. In the cockpit, Ellis fights the controls. Hydraulics pressure dropping. We won't have flaps. 20 seconds. A Messerschmitt Bf-109 flashes past the nose so close. Jack sees the pilot's scarf snapping in the slipstream. Its cannons fire. The plexiglass explodes inward. Jack feels a punch in his left arm. He doesn't look down. 10 seconds. The bombardier's training takes over. He makes minute corrections. Breath slow. Ignore the blood soaking into his sleeve. The crosshairs settle. Bombs. Away. The fortress leaps upward as 4 tons of explosives drop free. Through the cracked nose, Jack watches the bombs fall, small dark shapes tumbling toward concrete and steel. A second later, the aircraft lurches again. The bomb bay doors refuse to close halfway. Doors stuck. The engineer shouts. Hydraulics are shot. Cold air roars through the open belly. Drag increases instantly. They are slow. Too slow. Behind them, the formation disappears into haze. The crippled bomber now flies alone over hostile territory. Engines uneven, bomb bay yawning open like a wound. And the fighters are reforming. Miller's voice comes again, tighter this time. More bandits. 6 o'clock low. At least 4. Jack finally looks down at his arm. Blood drips onto the bombsight casing. The wound is deep, but clean. He presses it against his jacket and crawls back toward the cockpit. Glass crunching beneath his boots. Captain Ellis glances over his shoulder. One look says everything. They are 600 miles from England. One engine gone. Another overheating. Hydraulics failing. Bomb bay stuck open. And the German coast is still ahead. The cockpit glass explodes inward. Jack is thrown backward as cannon shells rake across the nose. Captain Ellis slumps forward against the controls. Blood spreading across his sheepskin collar. Captain's hit. The co-pilot, Lieutenant Harris, shouts. The fortress dips violently. Jack grabs Ellis by the harness and hauls him back just enough for Harris to seize the yoke. The aircraft steadies barely. Outside, a Messerschmitt Bf 109 roars past, its yellow nose flashing in the sunlight. Tail gunners out. Grady's assistant reports from the rear. He's not moving. Another silence joins the others. Smoke thickens in the cockpit. The engineer finished feathering number 4. 2 engines remain numbers 1 and 2 both straining unevenly against the drag of the open, bomb bay and shredded fuselage. Altitude, 19,800 feet. Harris wipes blood from his eyes with the back of his glove. Jack, how bad is she? Jack looks at the instrument panel, at the trembling needles and blinking warning lights. Bad, he says quietly, but she's still flying. Another burst of flak blooms ahead, black flowers hanging in the air. They are drifting south of their original route, directly over concentrated anti-aircraft batteries protecting the coast. The fighters circle again. Russo's ball turret guns fire in short, controlled bursts. They're pacing us, he says. Waiting for them to slow more. Waiting for the inevitable stall. Ellis groans faintly. He is alive but fading. Harris leans closer to Jack. We won't make England like this. The words hang heavy. Below, the North Sea glimmers beyond a thin veil of cloud. Freedom lies somewhere beyond that gray horizon. But first, they must cross the German coastline. A sudden vibration runs through the airframe, deep, unnatural. Number 2's overheating. The engineer shouts. Cowl flaps are jammed. Jack feels the dread settle in his stomach. If they lose another engine, asymmetric thrust will roll them into a spiral dive they cannot correct. With damaged rudder cables, recovery would be impossible. A fighter moves into position dead ahead, head-on attack. The most dangerous pass of all. The German pilot holds steady, closing fast. Jack can see his goggles, the scarf whipping behind his neck. The fighter's guns flash. Harris jerks the yoke slightly at the last second. The shells rip past the cockpit, shattering more glass but missing the men inside. Russo fires upward as the fighter streaks overhead. One wing jerks violently. The German aircraft wobbles, then pulls away, trailing smoke. But it does not fall. The fortress shudders again. Altitude, 17,500 feet. The coastline appears clearer now, dark sandbars, white surf, anti-aircraft positions dotting the dunes. Searchlights begin to probe upward even in daylight, tracking their smoke trail. They are too low, too slow, too damaged. Harris grips the yoke tighter. We're not bailing out over Germany, he says, almost to himself. Jack nods. The ship grows larger through the haze. Jack presses closer to the shattered nose glass, wiping frost and blood away with the back of his glove. The gray hull cuts cleanly through the dark water, leaving a white wake behind it. Not a fishing trawler. Warship. Can you see the flag? Harris asks without looking away from the controls. Jack narrows his eyes. The mast comes into focus. A naval ensign flutters stiff in the wind. Then he sees the shape of the superstructure, the gun mounts, the angular bridge. Not British, not American, German. A Kriegsmarine patrol vessel, likely escorting U-boats out of the Weser estuary. And they are descending straight toward it. Enemy ship, Jack says quietly. Harris exhales once. Of course it is. Altitude, 8,200 feet. The lone engine strains, vibrating harder with each passing second. The fortress cannot climb. It can barely maintain glide speed. Behind them, smoke still trails like a banner announcing their position. The ship begins to turn. On its forward deck, men move quickly around a gun mount. Flak from the deck, the engineer mutters. They are too low to ignore, too damaged to escape. A flash from the bow. A second later, black bursts blossom around the aircraft against smaller than shore batteries, but close enough. The fortress jolts as shrapnel rips through the already wounded fuselage. Russo's voice crackles upward from the ball turret. They're firing right at us. Jack calculates fast. If they ditch now, they land within range of German sailors who will scoop them from the water at gunpoint. If they tried to glide past, the ship's flak could finish them. Altitude, 7,000 feet. The engine coughs again longer this time. Fuel pressure needle trembles near empty. Harris swallows. We can't outrun them. We can't outclimb them. Jack looks at the ship again. He sees sailors scrambling. He sees the deck gun tracking upward. He sees something else. The warship is angled slightly north, its stern exposed. If they lose power completely, their glide path could carry them beyond the vessel's firing arc. But it would require turning hard, with no rudder, and only one engine. Bank left, Jack says. Harris stares at him. We'll stall. Not if we keep the speed. Another burst of deck flak explodes near the right wingtip. Metal fragments punch through the skin. Altitude, 6,200 feet. The engine sputters violently, then steadies for one more desperate run. Do it, Jack says. Harris pushes the left throttle to its stop and rolls the yoke gently. The Fortress responds slowly, like a wounded animal resisting movement. The nose begins to swing. The German deck gun fires again. This time the burst is closer, so close. Jack feels heat from the explosion through the shattered glass. The aircraft drops another 200 feet in the turn. Below, the gray hull slides across their field of view. Sailors are visible now, tiny figures pointing. The first attack comes from below. Jack has barely strapped himself into the jump seat behind the cockpit when the Fortress jolts again. Tracers climb upward from the gray sky beneath them, thin red lines reaching for their belly. Ball turret, talk to me. Captain Ellis shouts. Silence. The belly gun of the Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress is their only shield from below. If it's gone, static crackles. Then a strained voice. Still here, says Sergeant Tommy Russo. Hydraulics are sluggish, but I've got one coming in fast. Jack moves forward again, crouching beside Ellis. Through the fractured windshield he sees them. Four Messerschmitt Bf-109 fighters, sliding into formation behind them like wolves. The first German pilot fires from 600 yards. The Fortress vibrates violently as 20mm shells tear through the tail section. Splinters of aluminum spray inside the fuselage. Someone screams over the intercom. Tails hit. Staff Sergeant Grady calls from the rear. Controls feel mushy. Another burst slams into the right wing root. Number 4 engine coughs, sputters. All pressure dropping. The engineer warns. Ellis keeps his hand steady on the yoke. Feather it if she goes. They can lose one more engine, not two. Russo opens fire from the ball. Turret. Twin .50 caliber guns spit flame downward. A fighter pulls up sharply to avoid the stream, but another presses in from dead astern. The tail guns answer, brass pouring onto the floor. The German closes to point-blank range. Jack sees the flash before he hears it. The entire tail section shudders. Instruments flicker. The aircraft lurches violently to the right. Grady, Ellis calls. No answer, only the wind roaring through fresh holes in the fuselage. Jack feels the weight of it, then the isolation. No friendly bombers. No escort fighters. Just a crippled Fortress over enemy territory, bleeding altitude. The horizon tilts. Rudders sluggish. Ellis snaps. Cables probably frayed. Russo's voice again, breathless. I got one. He's going down. Jack turns and sees it through a side blister, a German fighter spiraling toward the clouds below, trailing smoke. But two more remain. Another attack run. Cannon shells strike the open bomb bay, tearing at the doors that refuse to close. One door rips loose completely, tumbling into the sky. Drag increases. The Fortress slows further. A fighter pulls alongside the left wing, so close the swastika on its tail is clear. Its pilot stares across the narrow gap. For a fraction of a second, their eyes meet, then both aircraft open fire. The sky becomes a cage of converging tracers. Metal screams. Number 4 engine erupts in flame. The propeller spins wildly, then slows. Feather it, Ellis orders. The engineer struggles with the controls. Smoke fills the cockpit, acrid and thick. They are down to 2 engines, and they are still over Germany. Jack glances at the altimeter. 21,000 feet. Falling. The first flak burst hits the left wing root. The explosion is close enough to feel like a hammer blow through the bones of the aircraft. The Fortress lurches sideways, and for a second Jack is certain they are going into a spin. But Harris fights the roll with everything he has left in the controls. Hold her, he mutters. Another black blossom detonates just off the nose. Shrapnel tears through the cockpit wall. The instrument panel sparks. The smell of burning insulation fills the air. Below, the German coastline spreads out in grim detail: sandbars, concrete bunkers, anti-aircraft emplacements firing in disciplined rhythm. They are crossing directly over a defended sector protecting access to the North Sea. The flak gunners have their altitude. Altitude, 16,200 feet. Falling. Number 2 engine begins to cough. All pressures in the red. The engineer warns. She won't last long. Jack feels the weight of that sentence. 2 engines left. If number 2 dies, they'll have only one on the left wing. The asymmetric drag from the open bomb bay and shredded tail will pull them into an uncontrollable yaw. Harris glances at him. No words. Just the silent question. Bail out. Jack looks down. The coast is directly beneath them now. Fields and villages. Wehrmacht trucks on the roads. No friendly faces. No safety. If we jump now, Jack says evenly, we land in a prison camp. If the parachutes even deploy cleanly through the smoke and slipstream, another burst of flak slams into the fuselage. The aircraft shivers violently. Somewhere aft, metal tears like fabric. Russo's voice crackles over the intercom. Ball turrets taking hits. I can't rotate fully. Stay with us, Tommy, Harris says. A sudden metallic snap echoes through the frame. The rudder pedals go slack under Harris's boots. Rudder cable's gone, he shouts. The nose begins to drift right, slow but unstoppable. Jack braces himself against the dashboard. Use differential throttle. More power on number 1. Harris pushes the left throttle forward. The Fortress responds sluggishly, nose correcting inches at a time. Another flak bursts closer than any before detonates beneath the open bomb bay. The shockwave lifts the aircraft upward. Then, number 2 engine erupts in flame. The propeller windmills wildly, sending vibrations through the airframe. Fire into. The engineer yells, already reaching for the extinguisher system. The cockpit fills with a harsh orange glow reflecting off the smoke. If the fire spreads to the wing tank, they will explode over German soil. Harris triggers the extinguisher. 1 burst. 2. The flames shrink, flicker, then die, leaving only a thick stream of black smoke trailing behind them. But number 2 is dead. They are flying on a single engine. The Fortress begins to descend faster now 15,000 feet. Ahead, the gray waters of the North Sea stretch cold and endless. The coastline slips behind them. No cheers, no relief. Only the cold gray spread of the North Sea, beneath a wounded aircraft barely holding itself together. Altitude, 13,800 feet, descending. The lone surviving engine number 1 roars at full power, vibrating so hard the entire airframe hums like a struck bell. The controls feel loose, imprecise. Without rudder authority, Harris keeps the Fortress straight with throttle adjustments alone, his gloved hands trembling from strain. Behind them, black smoke marks their path across Germany like a scar in the sky. Engine tongue rising, the engineer says. She won't hold max power forever. Jack looks out through shattered plexiglass at the endless water below. White caps flash in the wind. The October sea is near freezing. A ditching out here would mean minutes, maybe less. Any fighters? Harris asks. Russo's voice comes faint from the belly. Negative. They broke off at the coast. Even the Messerschmitt Bf 109. Pilots know better than to follow too far over open water with low fuel. That mercy feels temporary. Jack moves back through the fuselage, stepping over twisted aluminum and spent shell casings. The tail section is torn open to the sky. Staff Sergeant Grady lies slumped over the guns, unmoving, his heated suit wires dangling uselessly. Jack pauses only a second. There will be time to grieve later if there is a later. He reaches the radio compartment. Radio's dead, the operator says without turning. Antenna line's gone. We're silent. No distress call. No mayday. Somewhere behind them, dozens of other Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress bombers are heading back to England in formation. No one knows this one is still alive. Jack returns to the cockpit. Altitude, 11,200 feet. The sea feels closer now. Harris swallows. We'll never make the English coast on one engine. Jack calculates automatically. Distance to East Anglia over 300 miles. Fuel imbalance. Structural damage. Drag from the torn bomb bay. He knows the math. Maybe not, he says. A violent shudder interrupts him. The aircraft drops suddenly 200 feet. The engine coughs once, twice, then steadies again. All three men freeze. Fuel pressure fluctuating. The engineer whispers. Jack looks at the gauges. The left wing tank was punctured earlier. They are losing fuel slowly, maybe not enough, maybe just enough to kill them. Below, the water darkens as a cloud shadow passes over. Prepare for ditching, Harris says quietly. The words hang heavy in the cockpit. Ditching a Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress is almost always fatal. The nose digs in. The fuselage breaks. Men drown strapped to their stations. Jack nods once and reaches for the intercom. Crew, he says, voice steady despite the blood dried on his sleeve. Get your Mae Wests ready. We may have to put her down. In the ball turret below, Russo hesitates. He is locked inside a steel sphere suspended over open sea. The engine is dead, only wind now howling through torn aluminum and shattered glass. The Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress becomes a glider, heavy and wounded, dropping through cold October air. Altitude, 5,200 feet. Harris grips the yoke with both hands, knuckles white inside leather gloves. Without power, every control input feels exaggerated, fragile. Too much bank and they stall. Too little and they drift back toward the ship's guns. Below them, the gray hull of the Kriegsmarine patrol vessel cuts across the waves. Its deck gun tracks upward again. Speed, Jack asks. 140. Bleeding off. They need at least 120 to keep the wings alive. Another flash from the ship. The flak burst detonates behind them, this time too far aft. They have slipped past the bow, but not beyond danger. Russo, retract and get out of that turret. Jack orders. There's a pause. The ball turret is electric. With power gone, it cannot rotate fully. If they ditch, the spherical housing could jam against the water and trap him inside. I'm trying, Russo replies, voice tight. Manual cranks slow. Altitude, 4,300 feet. The sea fills the windshield, now dark, churning, endless. Harris angles the nose slightly down to maintain airspeed. The wind shrieks louder. Behind them, the German ship begins turning again, trying to follow. They won't outrun it. They can only land beyond immediate range and hope the sea buys time. Jack moves quickly through the fuselage. The floor tilts beneath his boots as Harris trims for glide. He reaches the ball turret access hatch. Russo's boots are visible inside, dangling awkwardly as he struggles to crank the mechanism by hand. Hurry, Jack shouts. Metal groans. Altitude, 3,200 feet. The turret rotates inch by inch until the hatch aligns. Jack grabs Russo's harness and hauls him upward into the fuselage. Both men collapse against the cold metal floor. Thought I was staying with her, Russo breathes. Not today, Jack answers. Another jolt runs through the airframe. Structural damage worsens as wind stress increases without engine vibration to stabilize it. Harris's voice comes over the intercom, calm but thin. Prepare for ditching. 10 degrees nose up at contact. Brace hard. Jack helps Russo secure himself against the radio bulkhead. Around them, the surviving crew strap in faces pale, eyes steady. Altitude, 2,000 feet. The German ship is smaller now, falling behind in the distance. But it is still there, watching, waiting. The sea surface races upward. Whitecaps look like jagged teeth. Jack returns to the cockpit and straps into the jump seat behind Harris. On my mark, Harris says quietly. 1,000 feet. The aircraft shudders violently in a sudden downdraft. 700 feet. A wing dips dangerously. Harris corrects gently. 500 feet. The sea roars beneath them. 300 feet. Hold it. Hold it. 100 feet. Harris raises the nose slightly. For one suspended second, the fortress floats just above the water. The impact is not a crash. It is an explosion of water and metal. The nose of the Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress buries itself into the sea, and the ocean punches back with brutal force. The left wing shears away instantly. The fuselage twists, slamming sideways across the surface before breaking open. Freezing water floods in. Jack feels the straps bite into his shoulders as the cockpit fills. The windshield vanishes in a violent spray of foam. For a moment there is only green darkness and the roar of the sea swallowing everything. He forces his hands to move. Release harness. Push. He kicks through jagged metal and exploding bubbles. The cold hits him like a blade, stealing his breath instantly. His Mae West inflates as he clears the sinking wreck. He bursts into gray daylight, gasping. The fortress is already disappearing. Only the tail section remains visible, sticking briefly upward like a gravestone before sliding beneath the waves. Men surface around him. 3, 4. Russo, Jack shouts. Ahead breaks water 20 yards away. Russo coughs violently but raises a hand. Harris surfaces last, dragging Captain Ellis with him. The captain is unconscious, face pale against the Black Sea. Raft. Harris chokes. Jack spins in the water, scanning. Their yellow fabric unfurling amid debris. The emergency dinghy has deployed automatically when the aircraft hit. They kick toward it, fighting waves that feel heavier than steel. The North Sea in October is near freezing. Survival time without flotation is measured in minutes. Jack grabs the raft's rope and hauls himself upward, hands numb already. He helps Russo climb in, then reaches back for Harris and the captain. Ellis does not move. Together they drag him over the side. 5 men remain. The others are gone. Jack looks back at the spot where the bomber vanished. Only all slick and floating wreckage mark the grave. Then he sees it. On the horizon, the gray silhouette of the Kriegsmarine patrol ship. It is turning toward them. They are alive, but they are not free. Russo stares at the approaching vessel. They'll pick us up. Harris nods once. Yeah. Jack feels the cold settling deeper into his bones, but his mind stays sharp. If the Germans recover them, they become prisoners of war lucky to live, condemned to camp somewhere deep in the Reich. If the sea takes them first, at least it ends quickly. The warship grows larger. Figures line its railings. A launch boat begins lowering into the water. Jack looks at the men in the raft, faces blue, eyes hollow but burning. They refuse to fall over Germany. They refuse to die in the sky. Now they wade in enemy waters, between survival and captivity. The launch hits the sea and begins rowing toward them. The rowboat cuts through the gray water with slow, deliberate strokes. Jack watches it approach, every splash of the oars echoing louder than gunfire ever did. 5 American airmen huddle in a rubber raft, soaked to the bone, surrounded by the North Sea and enemy steel. The launch from the Kriegsmarine patrol ship closes the distance quickly. 4 German sailors row. An officer stands at the stern, binoculars lowered now, pistol holstered but visible. No one speaks in the raft. Harris keeps one arm around the unconscious Captain Ellis. Russo's lips are turning blue. The radio operator stares blankly at the horizon where their bomber vanished minutes earlier. Jack forces himself to sit upright. He will not look beaten. The rowboat pulls alongside. One of the sailors hooks their raft with a pole and draws it closer. The officer studies them carefully. Young faces, flight suits marked with oil and blood, silver wings pinned crookedly to soaked jackets. Amerikaner, the officer asks flatly. Jack nods once. The German gestures upward toward the ship. You are coming aboard. They are hauled into the rowboat one by one. Hands are rough but not cruel. The sailors move efficiently. This is not their first rescue. Jack is last to leave the raft. He looks once at the empty sea where the Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress disappeared. 12 missions completed. The 13th ended here. The launch reaches the hull of the patrol vessel. A cargo net drops over the side. One by one, the Americans climb. Jack's arms burn from cold and exhaustion as he pulls himself onto the steel deck of the enemy ship. German sailors step back, rifles slung but ready. An enlisted medic kneels immediately beside Captain Ellis, checking his pulse without hesitation. War does not erase all humanity. The officer removes Jack's sidearm and map case, then meets his eyes. You are lucky, he says in careful English. Jack says nothing. Lucky is surviving Flak over Bremen. Lucky is gliding past deck guns. Lucky is living through the sea. But this is something else. They are alive, but they are prisoners. The patrol ship turns east, cutting back toward the German coast. Smoke from distant industry smears the horizon. Russo leans closer to Jack and whispers, "We made it." Jack watches the gray shoreline grow larger. No, he replies quietly, we're still in it. Because somewhere beyond barbed wire and guard towers, the war continues. Their squadron will fly again. More bombers will cross the Reich. More men will fall from the sky. But this crew did not. They held their formation alone. They crossed the coast. They refused to fall over Nazi Germany. The wind bites colder as the ship steams toward captivity. And the story of this flight is only beginning.